In this video, we're going to play with rounding borders. So let's go ahead and start by adding a border to this section. And this section is called steps, or has a class equal to steps. And so I'm just going to put a border around it. I'm just going to make it 3 pixels, and let's do dash just to be a little bit different. And I'll put a color here of one of our darker colors. Save that, and then I refresh, and now I've got a border. Okay, now look, there's a couple of things we can learn here. Here we have an image that's floating, and when it's floating, it's taken out of the flow, and so the size of this section is no longer contains it. And so since it's no longer contained, one thing that I can do is I can say overflow. I want the overflow to be auto, and then it'll expand to include it. All right, so there I've got that. Let's add some padding on the left. And refresh. Got a little bit too much padding on the top, so let's take that off. All right, so now we've got a border. Things are shaping up, looking pretty good. Let's now do border radius. And border radius, we get to pick how many pixels. So I can just say 4 pixels. And that will give me a small radius on the borders. Now I can make this a lot of different sizes. Let's go up to 40. And we start to see a bigger radius. And in fact, we can go even bigger. Let's do 200 and go up, and we can go any number in between here. Now notice how it's starting to, this is a section and it's got that border. Things that spill outside the border are not being shown. So you see that curve going there. Now you can't just keep going forever. So if I get it as big as 400, it no longer makes much of it, doesn't make much of a change. So let's go back and put on for 120, and we'll just leave it there. So you can put a border on something and then choose how much of a radius you want. You can also add this to an image. So let's take this image whose class is ideas. Oh no, words, sorry. And do a border radius. Now this one, notice, does not have a border on it. It's just the image, but I can still put a border radius. And when you do that on an image, it actually cuts right into the image. So you can see that happening there. And again, you can play with these values and to pick what sizes you want them to be. Okay, so to an image or an element that you have a border on. Okay, let's go ahead and do a border on a table. So here we have a table, and if I put a border on it, and I'll use that same color that I had. All right, so now I have a table with a border around it, and let's put a border radius. So border radius and 42 pixels. Well, let's do. Okay, now notice that I'm not getting any radius here at all. And it has to do with this border collapse property. If you put a border collapse on it, it won't round it. But if you take the border collapse off, then it allows it to round. Okay, so now let's try it. Again, we'll have the same problem. Let's move the border up to the TH and TDs and save it. And again, you get these square borders, even with the border radius. But if you remove the border collapse, then you can get curves on those. Then you get the border radiuses there. So just kind of something to remember when you're working with tables. But fun things, you can put borders on and round them, and you can round images with that same border radius property. One last thing I want to talk about is that you can set the radius of each corner to its own value. So notice here in the words image, I have set border radius with one value, and that means it sets all four corners with the same value. But I have the choice to use four values. So I can use 30 pixels, 80 pixels, 120 pixels, and 140 pixels. And there I've put four values on the border radius, and when I spin it around, what you see is you get a different radius on each one. So here's the 30 pixels, here's the 80, here's the 120, and here's that very large 140 pixels. So you can identify each one individually. It starts in the top left, top right, bottom left. If I choose two, so let's say I set two values, then this is going to go the top left, bottom right, and top right, bottom left. And refresh. And so then they will be matching. So you see this one matches this one, and this one matches that one. So you can set them individually and have different border radiuses on each corner.